Hello, everybody. Welcome to the OGM Leadership Spotlight, where today we're uncovering stories and strategies behind exceptional leadership. I'm your host, Tina Olivero, and in today's episode, we have the privilege of featuring Sherry Winn, who is a two-time Olympian and New York Times best-selling author, among many other things. Welcome, Sherry. It's an absolute honor to have you on the show today.
Hey, welcome, Tina. Thank you so much. I appreciate your introduction and thank you for bringing me on the show. Yay.
We were just talking about your beautiful place that you have there with all that warm wood. Stunning.
Yeah, I love it. I live in Montana and absolutely like every single day I wake up, I'm like, I am so lucky. I'm so lucky. That's how I start my day. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed.
Indeed. Yeah, the power of gratitude. Okay, so Sherry, could you share with our listeners a little bit about your background, what led you to pursue a life in the Olympics and have such grand goals, and also then to go on to write books and develop leadership programs and all the different things that you've done? Take us right through
Take
the
us
back.
right through all that. Woo! We're going to cover all those years in just like 2 minutes. Well, let me just say that,
We have lots of time.
there's nothing that you do without the dream of it first, right? And so when I was a kid, I can remember walking into the living room and my parents were sitting on this green vinyl couch and my grandparents were sitting in easy chairs. Our black and white television was tuned to the 1968 Olympic Games in Mexico. My parents and grandparents were screaming like, USA, USA. I'm like, I'm going to do that. Right. And so it was a really young age. I was 7 and that's where the dream began. And so literally like the next day I'm like doing, look, I'm gonna do some jumping jack and push-ups. And I start training, to the 7-year-old's mind. I start training. And it was simply a dream that I had from that really young age. And this is where things, occur. I mean, we only can get to where we want to go through the thought of it. Like we have to believe it and we have to live it before we can ever get it. So I was lucky enough that it was such a young age that I dreamed this, that I just thought it was going to become true. Right. And so whatever happened on the pathway to there, I still thought it was going to happen, regardless of all the challenges and the obstacles between age 7 and age 23. And so I was really fortunate to play a sport called team handball, which is like soccer using the hands or water polo on land. It's not played much in the United States. It's a really big game in Europe. But I got to travel all over the world to play. We played I played in world championships, junior world championships, Pan American Games, the Goodwill Games, which is in Moscow, of course, 2 Olympic Games. And so that was like, I couldn't have scripted that any better. It couldn't have been, if I would have had a dream and said, I want to travel the world and I want to be, end up at the White House with the president, like it couldn't have been scripted better.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I still think of that as being just one of those. I don't look at it as a great accomplishment. I look at it as something like an adventure. It's a great journey. It's a great adventure. It was such a lovely time. And then after that, I became a college basketball coach, and I coached for 23 years at the college level. Won a national championship. I took my team to 3 Elite Eights. And then in 2012, I decided that was like the end of that journey, the end of that adventure. And so I thought, well, I'm going to be a motivational speaker. And I had no idea what that meant. Thank goodness, right? If we ever knew what something meant, like what a dream meant, like we would stop before we ever started it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that 9 out of 10 people quit 1 year into speaking because they're not making money and things are not going their way. Because I'd burned my boats, right? I had like just said, this is what I'm going to do. And I didn't have a backup plan and I wasn't going to coach anymore. It's like, well, I have to make it. So I just persevered until I made it into that ability. And so when I was doing that, I learned that you can't just be a motivational speaker. You've got to have like, what's your niche? So what is it that you're going to be known for? And so leadership became the thing that since I had been in every sport I ever played, that I was like the pitcher, or I was the setter in volleyball. I was the point guard in basketball. I was I was that in that playmaker spot. And then of course coaching, I was like, oh, leadership, because that makes sense. It makes sense because I've been doing it forever.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into it. And so some of the greatest things that have come from that, Tina, is that the last book I wrote, which is called Winning Leadership, 7 Secrets to Being a Truly Powerful Leader. I interviewed over 200 leaders for that book, and I get to meet all these incredible people. It's just the most amazing thing
Yeah.
talking to these leaders that are, heading up multi-billion-dollar companies or multi-million-dollar companies or something like that. And so I get to meet these people and talk to them, get their insights about what it is they know, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of like a quick background. And then I can say, oh, and by the way, I did live a real life, which was, yes, there were many obstacles and challenges along the way. It wasn't easy. I developed chronic pain at the age of 35. Couldn't sit, stand, or walk for like 2 years without intense pain. Took me almost 7 years to get over that. Yeah, I've had the real hard, tough challenges like everybody else. So it's not this like, let me lay out the dream and tell everybody it's so easy. No, it's
Right.
it's real life stuff. It's real life stuff for sure.
Yeah. Good. Thanks for being authentic about that. Um, just to backtrack on something you said there, you said to believe it and dream it and live it
Mhm.
first.
Yes.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think people have it backwards, and what I mean by have it backwards, they wanna get the result of it first, right? And
Yeah.
go, "Is that it's gonna happen." People who live in the other reality, which is, like, you have to really live in the thing that you want. It has to be like, you believe it so much that you're living it. It's almost a visceral experience. It's almost like, when I was training for the Olympics, long before I was ever an Olympian, I was seeing myself in the opening ceremonies. I was seeing myself on a court plane. Like I was literally there long before it actually came to what we call reality. And I just put that in quote marks because, reality is whatever we're dreaming and thinking. That's really is what our reality is. Because
Hmm.
our brain doesn't know the difference between what is real and what's imagined. And so the imagination has to be so strong that it feels like you're living in it at the present moment, long before the physical manifestation shows up.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. And as a two-time Olympian, you've experienced, I guess, elite level teamwork with your crews.
Mhm.
And so, how does that translate into guiding principles, I guess, for Olympic level teams in corporations and, um, yeah, organizations? Can you hear the seagulls out here?
Yeah, yay. No, so really what I've learned is like a great team is a great team, right? It's built around the same principles as whether it's an athletic team or it's a corporate team. They're still built on the same principles. In fact, leadership is built the same, whether you're coaching a team or whether you're leading a company. The principles remain the same. There are core values that remain the same. For example, like the relationships that you build. So relationships are the business, right? Relationships are all about the team. If you don't have the positive relationships and you can't build the relationships, I will guarantee you that your team members are not going to want to stay with you, right?
Yeah.
So in college sports, it'd be like they're going to enter the transfer portal, and in the corporate world, they're just going to leave you and go to some other company. So that
Hmm.
you have to, so some of these things that build good teams, and one of those core values is, how are you building a relationship with your people? Are you in the situation where they feel like they can speak to you openly and honestly? Are you transparent with them? I mean, what kind of relationships are you building? And so if you're not building those relationships, then your retention numbers look different. Your productivity looks different, right? So
Hmm.
people have to understand that people want to be valued and heard. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what level of team that is, that is always true.
Yeah, that is always true across the board for sure. So, but what about if you're really well equipped to imagine a future and but your team isn't?
Right. Well, here's the thing is that you are the driver of the vision. So you have to keep the vision real in all of your people. So what are you
Right.
doing to create the vision real? Like, what are you doing every single day? And I remember this lesson I learned because when I first started coaching, there was a guy that I was coaching with, his name was Jason G, and he was the men's coach. And so the very first day of school, his guys were in the gym and they're doing push-ups. They're like this conference champs, conference champs, conference champs. I'm like, dude, Jason, like conference doesn't even start in December. It's August. He goes, the vision starts today, the dream starts today, and it starts every single day. And he goes,
Mhm.
you have to create that vision in people every single day. And so I watched him. I literally would, when his practice came, and they were usually before us, I would go outside my door and I would sit down in the bleachers with a notepad. And I would write down the things that he was saying, and I would write down the things he was doing. Because he would speak to people in a way like this. He'd say, Now, Jason, you know that you're the guy that's going to lead us to being a conference championship team. Like his vision was always there in the words that he spoke, right? It
Right.
was always there in the way that he presented to his guys. And I was like, man, that's just brilliant. It's just
Hmm.
brilliant because he made them believe it by the way that he spoke it and he visualized it. And when he had it on his calendar, like he didn't say, game versus somebody, he'd say win versus opponent, win. Like he was already planting the pictures and the vision and the way that he spoke to his team. And so if your team doesn't live in the vision yet, it means you haven't taught them how to live in the vision yet. It's your
Right.
job to bring it forth. It's your job to make it real. It's your job to help them see that and to help them see the possibilities that they have. They may have obstacles or limitations in their mind where you see only possibilities. You train them to see that.
Yeah. And so you're speaking in the world of it's already done.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And you have to bring them into that because a lot of people don't know what they can do. They only see their limitations, they don't see the potential. So
Yeah.
your job is to help them live in that world too. Your job is
Hmm.
to say, Susie, what do you think you can do? Well, I don't know. What if you could dream and there's no limitations to your dream? What would you do? Oh, I'd be this. Well, okay, let's talk about doing that. Well, I don't think I can do that. Well, that's just because you haven't yet seen all the skills that you have. You haven't yet explored your potential. So let's explore your potential. So your job is to keep that in people's mindset and to help them see their potential and possibilities. That's what a great leader does, right? A great leader is a builder of people.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, in terms of your book, when you interviewed 200 people, 200 leaders,
Mhm.
what is it that really stood out to you? Share some key messages from that lot.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that stood out to me is I asked the question, what's the biggest challenge you've ever had to face? And I didn't say in your career or personally or on the job. I said, what's the biggest challenge you've ever had to face? And over 80% of the people said myself. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating, right?
Mhm.
So this 80% understood that the truth, right? The truth is it's not the something out there
Yeah.
or somebody out there. It's you. So that told me, about their self-awareness, that they had great self-awareness. It told me that they were willing to work on personal development and they had spent either time or money or both on personal development and that they understood the power of that. So that was really super fascinating because they got that.
Mhm.
Um, and so, it's those leaders who also trained their team members to understand, look, it's you. The
Yeah.
challenge is you, right? It's not me. It's not your team member. It's not the KPI you're supposed to have. It's not that, it's you. So let's get over you and then those things will fall into place. So that was super fascinating. I just love talking about that. And so
Yeah.
that was
It
great.
is fascinating. And so then do you think that self-awareness and personal development and being able to self-reflect and really understand, the parts of you that self-sabotage, the parts of you that actually make things happen,
Mhm.
excavating and understanding yourself at that level, is that leadership?
Absolutely. I think that leaders that don't have that, they show up with their ego. So ego sounds like this is about me, not about you.
Right.
It sounds like I don't care about what's happening to you. There's not empathy in that ego. Um, the egoic leader might find ways to win like big deals or make a lot of money, but they have a lot of people who are not satisfied and they have problems with retention and they have problems with productivity at the end. And they have problems with, engagement scores. So they have those kind of problems. Now
Mhm.
you can be if you get you and you know that you're not the person that understands how to pull a team together, you could hire one of those people. That's still good, right?
Mhm.
It's still self-awareness though. It's still aware. It's still that self-awareness to know that's not your strength. So I need to hire somebody who does that for me and it pulls
Right.
people in. But you have to have that. Like I said, if you don't have that, you're going to have problems on your within your company. You're just going to have a lot of
Mhm.
problems. You got to have somebody who does that.
Yeah. And you said that you went through some pretty serious physical issues as well. So, do you think that self awareness and that level of your illness, what you went through with severe pain,
Mhm.
is that all a part of healing the physical body as well?
So what I was taught, and when I was taught this, I was like, this is a bunch of crap. This is BS.
Mm.
Was when I went through this physical pain. So you have to remember at this time I was 35 years old. Everything to me is about the physical. I mean, I'd come out of being, I'd been every year in my life had been about training and working out and the physical me, right? So I was still at 35. I was still running. I was still lifting weights and backpacking and biking and rock climbing and those kind of things. And then all of a sudden, boom, none of those could exist. Like I was literally a couch potato. So now I had to explore different belief systems. When you go to that kind of pain, that's an opening point for you to change. It's really this opportunity. We don't think of it as opportunity, but it truly is the opportunity. And so what happened, I went to 17 different medical professionals, had every test known to mankind, and they just came back and said, oh, we know what it is. I'm like, well, what is it? They go, chronic pain. I'm like, well, duh. Like, yes, I've had this for 2 years and you're telling me it's chronic. Pain. Yep, got that. But they had no remedy. So there's no remedy. There was no, we can give you pain pills. I'm like, well, what's that going to do? Well, it's just going to mask your symptoms. Okay, well, that's not what I want. I
No.
want to get rid of them. So I left Western medicine and I went into like alternative medicine and did a lot of different things there. And I met a group of people who were therapists, and they are body, mind, spirit, right? So they're saying you have to heal all three. If you want to get healthy, it's not just about your body, it's about your mind, it's about your spirit. You have to heal all of that. And
Right.
I'm like, well, that's stupid. That was my first response. That's stupid.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit better, and I was like, well, wow. Because I've tried, acupuncture already. I've tried physical therapy already. I've tried all kinds of massage therapy already. I've tried chiropractic already. And none of it had helped me, but sessions with these people had actually helped. They had moved the needle. And so that really became the deep dive for me is, what's going on here that, to heal the body, you have to heal the mind, and you have to heal that. And what the mind is like the emotions and the past and all of that. I didn't get it until then. And then I started reading tons of books on the subject. I really started diving into all this, like this mindfulness, this self-awareness, this, personal development. And that's where like humility comes into place. That's where kindness and empathy comes into place. That's where understanding others comes into place. That's where loving myself for the first time ever came into place. So it was those, years, and it took years and I could call it therapy because it's really therapy for the body, mind, and spirit.
Hmm.
That's where, like, my coaching practice for the people that I now coach, that's where all of that originated, from understanding that what you're going through, you oftentimes don't understand it. And you don't have the principles around the guiding principles around life to understand, and to look at who you are today, like how you see the world today is just a perception. It's a perception of thought habits that you developed over your time, the thought habits that lead to belief systems. Now you're living in a belief system that's not healthy for you, and you need to go back and change your thought habits so your belief systems change, so that you can live a happier life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one of the things I guess we don't really realize until we do is that, those belief systems are built on our family, our geographical location, our gender, our, school we went to, if our faith, all of these factors come in and make up or construct this, you know, framework for which we see the world. And then all of a sudden we have an illness or a pattern interrupt, and it's saying like you're going to be challenged to see the world in a different way now, and this is either going to be a continuation of the same and you'll continue to suffer, or you're going to take this on and you're going to start to learn some things that are going to bring you to the next level of your self-awareness.
Absolutely, Tina. Absolutely. Like that, life is going to offer us tons of opportunity. Because the human experience human experience doesn't say you start here and then life is all jolly and happy and everything happens in line with what you want. The human experience is we're going to have many, many, many challenges throughout our lifetime. That's the human experience. All of us get that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So those experiences allow for us to grow deeper. Like it allows for us to understand ourselves at a deeper level. allows for us to grow in many different areas. And I think that one of the biggest challenges that most people have is unconditional self-love, to get to that space of unconditional self-love. And look, if you have unconditional self-love for yourself, guess what? You have unconditional self-love for others.
Yeah, it does work that way, doesn't it?
Mhm.
But a lot of people don't understand what unconditional self-love means. Can you define it?
That's a good question, Tina. That's a great question. Well, I think it comes into, look, you don't have it if you berate yourself, if you're unkind to yourself, if you bully yourself, if you don't believe in yourself. That that's all a part of unconditional, that you're conditionally loving yourself. So what that
Mhm.
means is, conditional love is, I love myself when I do this, or I love myself if this happens. So if you look in the mirror, you're like, I love myself more when I lose weight, or I love myself more when I get a better job, or I love myself more if I get the money. So then that's all conditional. So unconditional is really coming to that place. It's just, I love myself, period. There's no
Mhm.
if or when or any of that. It's just, I love myself. And I think that um, that's a challenge for most of us, because we're taught conditional love from the
Mhm.
very get-go, right? We're taught it.
We are.
So, by our parents who don't know they're doing it. I mean, I'm not blaming anybody here. They don't know, right? Because if they knew better, they'd do better.
Mhm.
So it's like, you're growing up and your parents will say, "Oh my gosh, you made straight A's. You're so great." And you're like, "Ah," and then what's this,
Mm.
a B? So now you've got like, oh, it's conditional. So they love me more when I make the A's when I make versus the B's, right? They make
Right.
me love me more when I score more points versus when I don't score more points. There's those really subtle messages throughout our childhood that then we learn, to judge. And so when we're judging, then there's no self-love in judgment, right?
Yeah, and especially in the Olympic level, like that is, constant comparison and constant judgment and constant. So, in order for you to be an Olympian, you would have to swim in that world every single day. It's like
Oh,
a little bit better, or not good enough. And every single day you're like hit with these outside messages, which then become internal messages, which then either do or don't
yeah.
affect your performance. Sometimes they may not affect your performance, but they do impact your psyche.
Well, comparison is a thief of all joy, right? So, and yet when we're
Mhm.
competitive, that's all we do is compare.
Right.
So it's really about when you learn to just compare yourself with yourself. Like, am I being the best version of myself today? Oh, I
Mhm.
wasn't. Oh, I still love myself anyway. I'll be better tomorrow. Like, it's that grace that you have for yourself. It's that ability to self-forgive. So for example, I'll tell you a story. Like, I flew to Pittsburgh and I had a gig, a speaking gig at Frostburg State University. So it's a 2-hour drive from Pittsburgh. It's in the rain. It was really misty. I get there, meet the event manager, conversation, meet people as they come in, gave a great presentation, leave. Everybody's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Drove home, back to the airport, a hotel. Wake up the next morning, and I realized I had given them the wrong presentation.
Oh.
And nobody said anything to me, like nobody, not the event manager, not the people. But I was like, oh my goodness, that was a that's a big mistake. That's a huge mistake, right?
Mm.
Um, but here's what I did. I immediately texted the event manager, said, look, I'm so sorry. I just recognized I gave the wrong one. I want to apologize. I could give you a million reasons why I did it. It doesn't matter. I did it. Uh, here's some possible solutions to move forward. Now, in the past, I would have beaten myself up for days about that. I'd have been like,
Right.
"Oh, that's stupid. I can't believe I was so dumb. How could I have done that?" Da, da, da. Not anymore. Like, I laughed. I literally laughed. The first thing I did was laugh. I was like, "Wow, that was a biggie." The second thing I did was try to make
Mm.
amends for it, and the third thing I did is forgive myself. Like, that's it. That's all you can do. Move on. Don't
Yeah.
stay in that. So when we're in the position of conditional love, then we're going to beat ourselves up for a really long time.
Mhm.
Like,
I
that's what.
think that's so key what you said there is that the first thing you did was laugh, because I think that it takes something to get to that point in life when you don't take yourself too seriously. You don't see that every single move that you make is being evaluated under a microscope, and you're willing to let it all go and just say, "You know what? There's aspects of my personality which are absolutely hilarious." Like, I've done some really, really out there stuff that I've looked back and said, like, I had a speaking engagement myself once, and I didn't even show up. I was a day early. And I thought it was the next day, and it was actually this day, right? So they call me up and say, "Hey, you're speaking in an hour." And I'm like, "What?" So, and the same thing, like I could really beat myself up over that, especially that. But I was like, you know what? That happened and it just happened and it doesn't mean anything and it
Right.
doesn't mean anything about me. It happened. It's one of the mistakes that I've made. I also missed a meeting one time. So, it's like you're in business for whatever, 3 decades, you're bound to have a couple of snafus along the way.
It's the human experience. We are humans. We're not built to be perfect.
Yeah.
And so when we have this misconception that we have to be perfect, that causes that conditional love. We're not meant to be perfect. It is not. And I'm not saying, oh, I just goofed up again. Haha. Of course you want to learn from it and you want to make amends for it. So if you can
Yeah.
apologize for it, you apologize for it. If you can make it right, you make it right. But
Mhm.
to stay in it, that's not where first of all, it's not productive. It's not productive. You're not doing productive things for the next week or days or whatever that you stay into it or the hours you stay
Yeah.
into it. You're non-productive human being at that point. You're just so busy beating yourself up that you're not present for anybody else.
Yeah.
You're not capable of being present. You're still in that mindset. So it's not a good place to be.
Mhm. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Absolute time waster. Okay, let's talk about your book now. What brought you to writing that book? Tell us about, the experience of that and I guess maybe some of your chapters in that book and what you really want. What's the experience you want to leave people with that
Well, I
book?
think that you and I got connected because for my next book, which is business secrets, winning business secrets. This
Mhm.
past book that I wrote was called Winning Leadership: 7 Secrets to Being a Truly Powerful Leader. And really what happened was, I've read a couple other books, but this time I wanted people to understand that a sports person could understand leadership from a company's perspective, right? So I
Right.
wanted to get that out, and I also wanted to get out like really what I care most about in leadership is that here's why leadership is so cool because of the multiplier effect. So when you're a leader, if you're a good leader, and I mean in terms of good, like are you kind? Are you empathetic? Can you be kind, empathetic, and also push a goal in a way that makes everybody respond to it and want to live the goal with you, right? Are you a visionary that is able to do that? So all those kind of different things. So because when you're a leader and you can do that and you can show people how to communicate in a way that's positive and you can show people forgiveness and you can show people all those things you need to show them, they go home and they do, and because they've seen it and they lived it, now they bring it to their families and now they bring it to the community. So it's a multiplier effect. So the reason it's so big for me is it's a multiplier effect. In fact, that's a chapter of the book. Is about that multiplier effect.
Mhm.
It goes into it. There's a chapter of the book that calls Making Success an Adventure. And I love that chapter because I teach a course on resilience. I do a webinar on resilience. I do a presentation on resilience. And what I ask people is like, what is the title of resilience? And people give me all kind of things. And I say resilience is really when you can um, make it an adventure. So you make every obstacle an adventure. You make
Mm.
every challenge an adventure because that's a different mindset. When
It
you're on
is.
an adventure, you're not in the mindset of it's terrible, it's horrible, we're just trying to get through this. It's a totally different mindset. So the people in the book that I interviewed gave me some great examples of how you make success an adventure. How do you overcome these obstacles in such a way that it feels like you're on an adventure rather than you're trying to push through some sort of big obstacle? And of course, I have the first chapter, which is the winning factor, which is all about self-awareness and how do you gain self-awareness and what does that give you? So it's like I think it's a great book. I've had a lot of other people tell me it's a great book, and so I'm hoping the next book, can I make it as good as this past one? Because I got some really great interviews, like with you and many other people as well. And the reason the next book is so exciting for me is it proves that leadership, no matter what country you're in, the leadership principles are the same. So I've got people from Portugal and Spain and Ukraine and Denmark, and I don't remember. I mean, a ton of different countries, Canada.
Mhm.
So that's exciting for me.
Nice. Yeah. I like what you say about, turning things into an adventure. One of the things that I absolutely hated doing in my business was finances. And so I had to reframe it entirely. because it was driving me insane. It was something I kept putting off. It was such complete pain in the butt. And I said, I can either continue to do this, but finance is part of my business and part of my personal life, no matter what. So I said, I'm completely changing the context of this. And I said, I'm going to put it up front in my business and deal with it first thing every Monday in such a way that I feel this great accomplishment after a couple of hours after it's finished on Mondays. And I'm going to have the goal to have all of my bills paid a year in advance. Now that's an adventure.
That is an adventure. Good for you.
That is a huge adventure, but it's a game worth playing. And now that it's a game with myself, I'm kind of intrigued by this game. It's like, can I actually achieve that and have it, have momentum and consistency with my finances? And, ever since I've done that, I have a freedom around my finances, and I'm kind of excited, and I don't get mad every time I talk to the people that help me with my finances.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's
a breakthrough.
That's a great story. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. And then what's the sort of gem of the gem in your next book coming out? Like what's the big takeaway for everybody? And also let us know where people can get your books and your website and also your programs too.
Sure. So my website is www.thewinningleadershipcompany.com, and that's where you can find me. The book you can find at Amazon, and you can find it at like literally 999 other distributors like Barnes and Nobles and other places, but you can find it on Amazon. You can also find it on my website. If you wanted me to come speak to your company or you want a webinar, you can find me at the website. You can find all those kind of things at the website. And the next book, I think, the big thing coming through this is really talking about, one is the hybrid workforce. And what does that look like? Two is talking about how do you interview to get the high performers? That's another big topic on this thing that I've had many people talk about. How do you get the high performers? And then how do you, keep those people there? And then
give us a few tips on that. How do you hire the top performers?
Well, so, it's really interesting because a lot of people say, well, I use my black book. So they go back through the people that they've known and they say, tell me about some people that like I'm hiring for this position. A lot of people do that. And then a lot of people really focus on things like, I want you to tell me your top 5, not one challenge. I want to tell you your top 5 challenges you had and how you get through them. So they say 1, people are prepared for, right? But you say 5, then people aren't prepared for that. The third thing that I found to be phenomenal is that one guy that I talked to, he said what he does is when they put the ad out, they say, do you want to work for a company? And then they define their culture that does this, this, and this, right? And then they put, at the end of that, they say, this is not easy to get a job here. We want you to send us, before you send us your resume, we want you to send us why you want this job. Right. And so when they get that letter that says, I need the money, or I really want to work for a company where I can make more money, or I need a job, or they didn't talk about the culture at all. They didn't talk about the things. Boom, they're in the trash. So they're really looking for people who understand, like, this is what I really want to work for, a company that has this culture. And then they can start looking at their resume. But, and now just recently had a guy that he said, look, we're only wanting people to come who want to enjoy. Like, if you don't have fun here, we don't want you. And so, that fun factor, like, how do you have fun at work? What does fun look like for you? In what ways can you integrate fun with success and that kind of thing? So it's pretty interesting. Like, it's really interesting.
So you're hiring for people who connect with your culture and are fit for your culture.
Yes. In fact, many people will say, look, we can create, yes, they have to have some level of talent. We're not as worried about the talent as we are about the attitude and the behavior that they're going to show. So we're hiring for attitude first. And that's in alignment with our culture and the kind of person they are. Are they coachable? What kind of attributes do they have that show you that they're going to be a high performer versus do they have the right, like, talents right now?
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Cool. So what kind of conclusions have you come to with it all at this stage, having gone through so many phases in your life and done such amazing things, if you were sort of giving your best advice to your best clients, what would you say?
Well, I would say the big thing for you, for all of us, really, is to continue to grow. Like, never let growth stop. So, what are the habits that you have, the daily habits that you have that encourages growth? Does that look like meditation? Does it look like self-reflection? Do you journal? Do you have gratitude journals? Um, do you have tough conversations with other people where they can call you out on stuff that you do? Do you allow that to happen? Do you reflect on what they say to you about that? Do you read books? Do you listen to podcasts? I mean, how are you continually growing yourself? I just talked to a friend of mine. His name is Rich Rogers, and he's a phenomenal guy. And he said he just listened to a book by Earl Nightingale for the 62nd time. For the 62nd time. So, for me, it's about, look, are you continuing to put the things in your brain that will fuel you, that will grow you or not? Because it's easy to lapse back into, the world that other people experience, which is negative and full of wars and negativity and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. Good. Great. Good stuff. Okay. Here's a question. These are two different contexts, but this is something I have been inquiring into recently. What is the difference between being a peak performer or a workaholic?
That's a great question too, Tina. So I would say a peak performer enjoys their work. Um, and they're not doing the work as they have not confused their work as their worth.
Hmm.
Whereas a workaholic has that confusion, right? That they only see themselves through their work and they don't have another place where they feel worthy. So that peak performer has already feels worthiness and they're already living in that space. So
Hmm.
now they're able to have peak performance while working and then also enjoy other aspects of their lives. They enjoy like they have a better balance. So they have, they enjoy family, they enjoy fun and recreation, they enjoy, some sort of, their mind body connection, if you will, through exercise or meditation or whatever that looks like.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I work a lot. I love the things that I do, and lots of times people will say to me, Be careful, you don't want to become a workaholic, or don't." But I don't feel like I'm working too much. I feel like I'm in this constant state of learning, and
Mhm.
that's what is the most meaningful thing to me in my life, besides being a contribution to other people. It's
Right.
like I learn so that I can be a contribution to others.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so you're not confused with your worth is your work. You're already, and that's something that I think is really hard for people to learn. So, it's kind of, that self-love thing is also through worthiness. So, when I was training and I was trying to accomplish all these things and all the records that I broke and all the things, blah, blah, blah. You're a two-time All-American, you're valedictorian of a college, you're two-time Olympian, you set 8 school records at college, you da 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 da. All right. So, but every time I did that, I thought, well, this is what will make me feel good. Like this is the moment that I will have arrived. And none of that did that for me. I was
Yeah.
still left going, wait a second, like, how come I don't feel great? How come I still feel less than? Well, because the titles has nothing to do with worthiness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you've achieved the worthiness, it doesn't mean that then you sit around and do nothing. It just means that you are now enjoying the process, right? And so
Mhm.
you can work hard and enjoy the process. You can work hard but you're not working for a title, for the money, for you're enjoying what you're doing. Now, can you get titles? Can you get money from that? Sure. But it's not the reason why you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Precisely. Yeah. There's lots of things I do that have no money involved whatsoever. I just do it because, it makes me feel good.
Absolutely. And makes other people feel good. So when you feel good about you, it's easy then for other people to feel good around you. and be a part of it.
Yeah. Um, okay. And then let's say you're headed to the end of your life and you're looking back into the life that you lived. Um, Often I think about what are the most important conversations I want to have, and what do I want? What defines my version of success having looked back?
Mhm.
And I guess that's my question to you is what would define a successful life look like to you?
Well, I think that a couple of things is like forgiveness. Like, have I forgiven myself, and have I forgiven other people? So, am I living more in love? And I think that's a yes. Have I learned to let go of all the judgments of other people? Working on it. Have I forgiven, have I forgiven other people, all the other people? I'm working on it. But I think that's success for me, because then that's where true happiness and joy and peace and serenity comes from. And so
Mhm.
it's not about, a title or anything anymore. It's just about, what does that feel like? And am
Right.
I exuding that when I'm around other people? Because that's a great gift, right? You don't realize how your energy and the things that you've done for yourself, how that impacts other people. And I'll
Right.
tell you, like, one time I was just, this is the way that I love this story, because it really tells a lot about, when you work on yourself, how you emit an energy that other people can feel. I was at a airport, and so I'd gone through. I was waiting on a friend because I do TSA and my friends don't. I'm not going to stand in line. I'm going to go through TSA, and I'm waiting on the other side. So I was just standing there. I was doing nothing. I was literally not doing anything. I was just hanging out at the wall, looking at people, kind of watching them, and just smiling to myself. And this lady stops. Have no idea who she was. Whatever. She stops. She says, "Oh my gosh," she said, "I love your energy. I just love your energy." I hadn't said anything to her. I hadn't done anything to her. I'm just standing there. I love
Mhm.
your energy. Thank you for emitting that energy. And I'm like, that's the kind of space I want to inhabit.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. Nice. You have it figured out, Sherry.
Well, I don't know. I think there's still a lot to figure out, but I do understand the things that really truly make us happy. And, uh, you know, when we work on those, then good things come to us, to ourselves, and to people around us. So, still many lessons to learn, I'm sure. I am certain of that. And, what I want to do is help other people through the presentations I give, through the webinars I give, through the books I write. Um, Coaching that I do, I want to help other people find those spaces in themselves too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish up, Sherry?
No, I just thank you, Tina, for taking the time to bring me on, our Great Minds podcast. It's great that you do this and you share this with people, because the
Mhm.
more people like you who spread the word, who help people understand, the more that you have that multiplier effect. And that is a life-changing event.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like your book, I'm like you, I get to interview so many interesting people like yourself, and I get to learn so much in the process. And it's an absolute privilege to have these conversations in the world and share them with others. And yeah, I couldn't ask for a better thing to spend my time doing. So thanks for being on the show, Sherry, who is the CEO of the Winning Leadership Company. And if you are looking for her books, her training, you can reach her at website. What's your website again?
TheWinningLeadershipCompany.com.
thewinningleadershipcompany.com. So check her out. She's full of wisdom and full of life's experiences. She's a force to be reckoned with. Thank you so much. I'm Tina Olivero, your host for the OGM Leadership Spotlight. Stay tuned. We have lots of podcasts coming up in the future. It's so interesting to listen to world-class leaders and our great minds, the wisdom that is creating the energy of the future. Until next time, over and out.